Hey budding herbalists, I'm Maria Noel Groves at Wintergreen Botanicals, and today I'm here to talk about autumn olive. It's just at the change of the seasons right now. We're in mid-September, going from late summer into fall. Things are just starting to crisp up, and autumn olives are starting to ripen all across the land. And autumn olives are one of those underappreciated, often unknown superfruits that grows very widely across New England and a lot of the United States. And in fact, back when I was, just a kid, the state of New Hampshire was giving the seedlings away to folks in new neighborhoods, encouraging them to plant them because they help fix nitrogen in the soil and they're great and favored by birds and all of that. And well, they might be regretting that now because, as it turns out, they're also terribly invasive. But while I would definitely not recommend that you go out and plant this, and I wouldn't want you to in any way encourage the propagation or growth of this, it's a plant that's very widely abundant this time of year, and you can certainly go out and harvest the berries. Technically, it is illegal to harvest invasive plants, and the reason why is because they're afraid you are going to inadvertently or intentionally propagate it. That said, most people aren't really going to mind or care or notice, but I would definitely make sure that you're not composting the seeds after you strain them out of your jam or in any other way propagating the plant. So let's talk a little bit about what autumn olive is good for. This is a really common shrubby tree. It has some reddish berries. These ones are probably just about, maybe not quite ripe. They're decent. There's some other ones on this bush that are a little bit more red. These ones are good, but they're not quite as red and ripe as I really like them. And you will also notice that they have a silvery underside. Sometimes the top of the leaf is also kind of silvery. Sometimes it's more green. And when these berries first start to come out, they're more like a silvery golden color. And then as the berries ripen, they turn red with gold flecks on it. And you can go ahead and harvest these. These ones are really pretty perfect right now. You can just go ahead and kind of pull these off and you end up with these little berries that you can eat. And they're decent tasting. These ones are actually pretty good. Your autumn olives are going to taste kind of a little bit like a pomegranate or a raspberry in that they're sweet and tart and astringent, but they're not quite as automatically like I'm going to eat handfuls of delicious as some other things. They're more of a refined kind of fruit flavor, more of an adult fruit flavor. And these are loaded with antioxidants, they're loaded with anti-inflammatory compounds, and they're notably loaded with lycopene. Lycopene is the antioxidant that's most famously found in tomatoes, but autumn olives have significantly more lycopene than cooked or fresh raw tomatoes. And lycopene is very good for a lot of things, most notably for helping to support the prostate and helping to, in some ways, discourage cancer from growing there. And it may even be useful in general protocols. It's not a cancer cure by any means, but in much the same way that berries are really good for brain health and helpful in cases of dementia, but certainly not a cure, autumn olive berries and things that are high in lycopenes are also really going to be very helpful for the prostate and helpful in conditions like prostate cancer. These are also, your lycopene is also very supportive for other cancers, including breast cancer. And there have been some studies on Russian olives, which are closely related to autumn olives. And those ones have found that the flesh and the seeds are very high in anti-inflammatory compounds and useful for arthritis and pain. And it's, you could probably jump to the conclusion that the autumn olives are similarly beneficial, although we don't know that for sure. And you can do a lot of different things with autumn olive berries. You can make jam with them, you can make jelly with them, you can make cordials with them. One of my favorite things to do with them, besides eating them fresh, is to put them through a food mill, whether they're cooked or raw. Both work, but it's actually a little easier to strain out the seeds when they're raw versus once they're cooked. And so I'll put them through a food mill, and then I will make fruit leather with them. You can definitely eat the seeds. They're even a little bit more of that like antioxidant puckery flavor, so probably really good for you, but a little bit less palatable. And so, you can eat the seeds or leave them out, but usually in recipes like fruit leather and jams and things, people tend to strain out the seeds. And as I mentioned before, even though I'm normally a big fan of composting any dregs I have from herbal remedies, you would not want to compost or otherwise throw the seeds of this out in nature because they might propagate. This plant is really good at propagating, and we don't want to propagate it because we don't want to break the law and we don't want to disturb the ecosystem any more than necessary. But these plants are here, so we might as well go ahead and enjoy them. And any berries that we eat are berries that the birds are not going to eat and then poop out and then spread. So I think that it's probably beneficial in the grand scheme of things. So go ahead, play around with autumn olives. Once you get a feel for what they look like, you will realize they are everywhere. You'll often find them in abandoned fields like what I'm in right now, alongside roads, disturbed areas. You probably don't want to be harvesting next to an industrial park, but that is the kind of area that you'll often see it, where the soil was disturbed maybe in the last decade or couple decades and has remained relatively open. If the forest is allowed to grow in around it, usually the autumn olives will die off, but they really do like that disturbed, somewhat open soil, especially if they're on the edge or if they're just in total sun. You see them often on highway medians. Again, not where you'd be harvesting it, but it's a place that you tend to see it. And they have, shrubby trees with silvery foliage. And in springtime, in May, they have these really lovely little cream-colored flowers that smell amazing. They're like sweet, like honeysuckle and hotel soap, and just one of my favorites. And I use autumn olive flower essence for helping folks with new transitions and new ventures. So for example, when folks are going through perimenopause or andropause, or they're just going, moving to a new neighborhood or trying out a new job, autumn olive flowers as a flower essence is really one of the great remedies that we can use to help support people in those transitions. And there are some traditional uses of the flowers and the leaves as antimicrobial agents. I am less familiar with that, but I know that that use is out there, so you can certainly read up on it. But I just feel like there's so much we have to learn and appreciate about this really abundant superfruit that we could really, go ahead and utilize and enjoy in our diets and freeze and preserve so that we can utilize it throughout the year. It's funny because we get so excited about superfruits from these really exotic places, and yet we have some really wonderful ones like wild grapes and wild blueberries and wild autumn olives right here under our nose, and very prolific, very easy to harvest, literally buckets of them if you have the patience to go out and do that. So have fun enjoying, getting to recognize and playing around with autumn olives, and happy herbal adventures.